Hello, how are you?
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Christian. Hey, Christina.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Swamped. We had like a full day hackathon at work with AI stuff, and I'm exhausted of working with those models. But other than that, I'm good. Now it's up to sustainability. Yeah.
It sounds like fun. You know, hackathon sounds like fun.
Yeah, it does. Especially getting the output that you want. How are you doing?
True. Also good. I actually also spent the whole day in the workshop, but I slightly touched already 1 hour long discussing about sustainability. So I was like a little bit more lucky in the topic.
Squeezed that in.
Yeah. Hey, Antonio. Hello, Nikki.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh.
Perfect. I think, are we everyone who left us a beautiful plan for the topic? I think maybe Adam is missing, but other than that, I dropped already in the chat the link to the document so you can add yourself to it. So GT and add myself for running this meeting today. And then I need to open the right issue for this topic too, if I find it. So here's also the link for the issue which we're actually talking about. Hello, Tom. And I'm also going to share the screen because then it makes it life a little bit easier. Where do I have the right window? I hope this one. All right, that looks correct. Perfect. If someone would like to take notes, I would be very happy and thankful for it. Otherwise, we can also just relax a little bit and try to remember what we have discussed about.
I can try. Then we'll see how it looks like.
That would be lovely. That would be lovely. I mean, you don't need to write every single word which we are discussing. For that, we have the video recording. So official part. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this beautiful little meeting from the CNCF TAG Environmental Sustainability. This is, as usual, CNCF meeting, which means it falls under the code of conduct, which boils down to be nice, awesome, and friendly to each other. And in any other case, we need to get very angry and mad. But hopefully never this happens. As said, we have the links in the chat, so you will find the document which you right now can see. And you can find also the link to the GitHub ticket. What we're today will talk about is the idea for drafting a set of hackathons or a set of different little hacks, which together maybe will do and become a hackathon. So this is a kickoff meeting. It doesn't need to be operated and run by me. So if any one of you is interested to run this activity, after we have a little bit more clear picture of what we are going to do, you're more than welcome to assign yourself to take over the lead and driver for those activities. Shortly about this ticket, where does it come from? Well, we have discussed in context of KubeCon and Open Source Summit how we can engage more with the community and how we can leverage our topic and make it more visible. On the one hand side, we are currently think that we would have enough topics to provide a whole track. Yes, the Open Source Summit has a sustainability con, but there's also a lot of other topics from LF Europe, for example, which goes directly into how to use open source in energy grids to measure whatever in electricity. So it's a little bit more far away from what we are thinking about if we are talking about sustainability. So I observed this year at the KubeCon Europe that there was, beside all these fantastic talks, a security hackathon going on, where a couple of people were sitting in a room and outside of a room together on a table and working on different topics. And as far as I got it, I think it was a 4 or 6 hour hackathon, also with some different topics. They frequently come together, have a check-in, what's going on, seeking for help, and so on and so forth. And I pretty much like the idea because I think this would be also quite suitable to develop for us, especially for us as a community, because we have different topics which are in itself as a closed solution can be taken a look on, like how do I optimize my workload, how do I measure something, how do I do the right scaling, and so on and so forth, and which can be as little hacks be applied or all together as a big hackathon, and which can be utilized by the community around the globe. So that someone within a meetup could do a 1 or 2 hour hack for utilizing, I don't know, KubeCrete, for example, for time-based scheduling, or looking into KIDA and how to utilize it based on power metrics, and so on and so forth. So there's I think a quite nice baseline which we can create and which can help people to get started. Getting started with the topic of sustainability, but also getting started by reducing the, I don't want to say fear, but like the holding themselves back for getting the touch on like a tool and just test it out, right? So this overall would be roughly the idea. Again, to boil it down, having time-based hacks, not too long, not too short, 1.5 hours, maybe 2 hours, maybe defining a couple of those. I do not want to have like 20 in the beginning, that would be crazy, but like maybe having 3 or 4 would be a quite good feature set, because then you can choose depending on what is the critical mass or what is like a key point. You can exchange a little bit. And the idea would be that we define and write down the hacks, maybe in our repository, maybe somewhere else. Maybe you can put it to our website, I don't know, where we have like a hands-on guide. Hey, do this, that. Ideally, but this is my personal perspective, I do not want to reproduce from any tool just like a hands-on guide. I think that's dangerous to just copy paste like the approach like a tool would also define an introduction. But I think it makes sense to enrich it with further information to give more sense around it. Why I should do this one, what could be like a good practice in that direction. Hey, do you try, please try that, please try that. Do you see a difference in it? Things like this, so that it's more like having an introduction with giving a lot of additional information and empower the people or motivate the people to experiment around with it. Yeah, and I think based on that just explain the idea, and it's up to you to throw potatoes at me or giving more ideas. Maybe you got ideas meanwhile, maybe you got some additions to it which you would like to see there. Stage is yours. Everyone shy. Maybe we can start with this. I guess you're here because you like maybe the idea. I think so. So you can shake the head and say, yeah, yay. Okay, at least something. So we are not totally
I think it's a good idea. No, I like the idea a lot. I think it's good. It's nice to have a hackathon, but in my experience, these sustainability hackathons, in the end, they're a little bit education rather than building something. But that's fine. That's makes sense because these tools are not always that easy to use.
Exactly. Yeah.
Even for experienced developers.
Yeah. So maybe also to be precise with the terminology. Also, I've written hackathon. It doesn't mean to develop something new, right? So it's more like a workshop or something like this. But I pretty much like this idea of like you have a group of people which are lightweighted, instructed, and work together on learning how this is done, how to utilize it, right? Because I don't know how your feeling is, but there's a lot of introduction out which you just copy paste commands and it works in the end, which is nice. But theory, as the thing which I learned from it is not much. I see how the tool works, but literally an hour later I left the room. I have forgotten what I have done. So I think this is like, it is easy to do, but I wish we can find a way where it's really like, at least the people understand why they maybe should use this tool and what does it cause, how does it help. And if they have already this one in their mind, then we won already something, because maybe they will consider to implement somewhere a tool or maybe contribute to the community and so on. Nikki.
Yeah, so great idea. And I like also the examples that you provided for like the there's actually 4 ideas, so that's perfect. My one suggestion and / question / something to consider is the infrastructure part. I feel I have this memory of hearing that the CNCF has some credits or infrastructure that they could provision if it is a CNCF project.
Mm-hmm.
You know more about this? Could this be used for this?
I'm not sure if this, well, it could be used for, I think, a conference scope. Like if you have a conference and we have planned a hackathon, I think for this, for sure it could be used. But typically it's more also for like the other idea to build up a central data collector for how is the software carbon intensity or the power consumption per open source tool, right? So it's actually more like in this direction as far as I know, but it can be also used for hackathons. The infrastructure overall is a very good point, because some of the stuff can be done on your local machine. Some other things most likely will require that you have a cloud environment, right?
Yeah, but even just generic cloud environment might not be sufficient. I mean, you can't run Kepler in most environments, so you will need something custom set up before that. That's for most things, so that's kind of tough. But well, you could do Keda, for example. I think that's much more meaningful. I mentioned in the chat, sorry to take the stage, I didn't raise my hand, but I'm just gonna go for it. I mentioned the work of Green Coding Berlin. They set up I mentioned this in the I think in the Slack. They together with the SDIA, the Sustainable Digital Infrastructure Alliance, they set up a sort of runner in some custom data center that runs GitLab pipelines and does measurement. So I think I did reach out to Arno Terrara. He's the head of Berlin. I think that might be excellent, because then you can basically take over their workshop ID to some extent, because they have been doing this workshop I think twice now. They just did it in Berlin this last week and maybe a year ago as well. That might be cool.
Yeah, it would be cool to get in contact with the guys and see what they have done and how they've run it.
Yeah, he's now on holiday, but I sent him an email and I invited him to the Slack. So we'll see. I don't know if he wants to, but yeah, see how it goes.
Christina.
Yeah. I just wanted also like to share general reflections, because I think this is a very good a good idea, because we still have like quite many people that are very new to this topic, to this domain, and I think this potentially would be also quite a big amount of the audience would be the people who do not necessarily have not worked with it a lot before. So I think it would be very good. From my own experience, I totally agree on what you mentioned, Max, about like there is a lot of content out there like that focuses on like super easy stuff, like you just paste this in and paste this in and then it's up and running. But then what you sit again with is like, okay, but how do I practically implement it in my project? What kind of value it would give and what I need to think about when implementing this? So I think including that learning aspect as part of the hackathon would also help people to discuss this in groups when they're looking at it, and also deepen the understanding that they can live with, that will actually sit there and not just like I've been in hackathons where it's like step-by-step commands, and I had less idea of what was going on actually. I just pasted it in and it worked, and I found something that I needed to find, but I actually didn't understand the whole picture of how things work. So this brings less value than actually making it maybe more focusing on kind of making that understanding of how this will make it work. And I think there are quite many tools, or like there are new tools coming out that are very rapidly being developed. So of course, if we could have this, we could discuss, but I think it depends on how difficult it will be to set up a tool for a person on their machine or in their cloud instance that they have, versus having a sandboxed environment where they could see the tool in action, see how this data can be integrated in a dashboard, and like try to work with that data or something and understand what does this data actually say. Because yes, Kepler gathers a lot of data, but can we read it? Do we understand what it means? If I'm a beginner and come to a hackathon, I have no idea. I haven't worked with that data before. So I think just having that in the back of our head, like what the audience would be, would also help it to kind of, make it a bit easier to start with it.
Christian. You're muted.
It's okay now?
Yep.
Thank you, Dong. I totally agree with you. I think that we can make a global demo. Measure is okay. It's a good begin. But if we don't arrive to turn down servers, for me, that's my idea is to arrive to turn down servers, because if we don't turn down servers, we don't reduce that's not our fingerprint CO2. We can use HPA, BPA, or whatever in Kubernetes, but we will gain a lot if we turn down servers. So I think we can make a complete demo, starting with Kepler or Scaphandra or whatever, but at the end arrive to turn down servers, because if we turn down servers, we really gain in CO2 performance.
Absolutely. And
actually, I am working in a subject like that. So I am trying to measure what's the performance to turn down a server, because if we have tools in order to measure the performance of a better code, but we gain a lot if we turn down server.
Yeah,
more than perform a better code.
No, absolutely. And I mean, the idea is that like the different hacks should be independent from each other, but can also utilize each other like an option, right? So to turn down infrastructure, to reschedule workload on a Kubernetes, for example, you do not need necessarily Kepler for it. You utilize standard metrics like how much is the service idle, for example, and then try to deschedule and compromise the distribution of the application if possible, so that you can shut down then the rest of it. But that's why we have different ideas, and then we can utilize it to have different hacks in it, and can have one focus on like, okay, how do you really use it? How do you use, let's say on AWS, for example, a Carpenter and a KubeCreen? How do they play together? The one thing is shutting down idle services, the other thing is shutting down idle server. Nice, let's put it together and just shut down as much as possible, for example. Absolutely.
Because if you install only Kepler and Scaphandra, you are not reducing the CO2, you are increasing the CO2. So you have to arrive to turn down to perform a decision. Do you know what I want to know? Okay.
Yeah, no, for sure. But as I said, that's why these are not like we talk about a Kepler and then doing the other stuff with it, but it's like this is just one topic and this is a totally different topic, independent from the other lines. Tom. In a discussion.
Sorry, yes, I'm here. I just got distracted for a second. I can't disagree with that we need to do something. I think the biggest issue we have now is that we don't have numbers for reporting, but anyhow, it's a different discussion. Do you have any new projects coming in? There was one lady that mentioned it said hi in Slack. We were back from her. We can ask them also
we need
for the
to take a
hackathon.
look. So I know the tool or the product. I would wonder which part of them they would contribute as an open source tool in it.
Which tool is it?
But this is what it's called Mesh Cloud. They have a couple of tools in the repository, like Colli, CLI, and so on. But I think they need to go through the process, discuss it with the TLC, what it would be, what they want to submit here. Because I mean, what we don't provide is like a green cloud or a green ops batch, right? It's like this is not what you're doing. But yeah.
What do you mean a green ops patch, like an actual product from a corporate organization, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but besides this, there are currently, I think, not so many tools there. I mean, the cool thing is that the market, the open source community is moving so fast, and that there's a lot of movement in it. But yeah, that's why the discussion in 1 year will totally look different.
Yeah, I'm curious to see new ones coming in. I mean, I'm kind of expecting Cardcomma Footprint to be there at some points, and some things from Google and Berlin maybe. But yeah.
All right, cool. So now we have the broad ideas. We have thought about some considerations. For me, what is the relevant steps is like to discuss and think about what could be the topics which we would like to see to be developed as a hackathon or as a hack in the beginning. And in the second step, how we want to set it up, who will work on it, who wants to lead it, and so on and so forth. I don't know who comes first. I would go with Nikki first.
Yeah, my comment was on a slightly different point from what you just mentioned. It was a question of, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm wondering if with the week that we're planning also with Leo, the week of talks, how this and that can also overlap. And and going a step further, if we want to start a wiki or something like that about organizing hackathons, about organizing events, and maybe some information, also lessons learned from the previous 2 or 3 events that have been organized by the tag, and just start compiling information about what worked, what didn't work, what we should think about, like a kind of guide for hackathons and for events, so that they can start, you know, we can create a model that we can replicate.
I love that idea. I think this is needed, and it will be needed, because as I said, if we can spread the hackathons and like distribute it to other events, to other meetups, and basically give it off the hand, so someone else maybe never had touch or just joined the meeting, but didn't work before on one of the topics, but they want to do the hackathon. Or what I think could be also quite realistic, because I'm working a lot with end users together, that they internally want to run a hackathon on this topic, because they cannot run it externally. So for this, it would be fantastic to provide also the guide around it, like, hey, these are the things which you have to organize. This is what you should do XYZ time before, and so on and so forth. Absolutely. I think that would be really helpful for everyone who wants to run it and do it.
That could be
Should
part
be
of
part of
the comms working group, potentially,
Also,
like
yeah.
a wiki on organizing.
Yeah. Antonio.
Yeah, I was wondering if like part of the like eventual hackathon could be also like maybe in either a Q&A session or like initial like questions like to people, like what they think like they're gonna do, like what are their expectations, so that like we can also, I don't know if like at the end or at the beginning, maybe it makes sense to have one-on-one, but yeah, like so that we have also some crowdsourcing, like so like an aspect which is not strictly technical, but can help also like understanding what other people might want from an hackathon, so like why they're here.
I think, yeah, it's always good to engage with the people who take part in hackathon. Let me just think a little bit through it. So I guess when we have like just like 2 or 3 modules, that we do not have that much flexibility in a hackathon, it might be like you can ask what they expect or what they want to see, but it might be difficult to fulfill it if we do not are prepared for it, right? So it could be also calling the false expectation. That's why it might be relevant to have a good description for each of the hacks, to say like, this is what you're going to achieve, this is what you're going to see, this is what you need to provide to have a good experience for it, to set the expectations right. And if we have maybe multiple hacks provided, because maybe other tool providers see also relevant to describe for them a little hack, and you have a little more option in it, then you can, I guess, also getting the feedback or asking in the beginning what people wants to see, or what is the direction which they want to move. Is it more an observability or measure thing, or do we talk more about process, GitOps, pipelines, and things like that, right? So that you can flexibly choose. On the other hand side, we always should ask for feedback if we had a hackathon, and to optimize the whole setup, and obviously ask for a contribution, because someone who has joined the hackathon maybe find also a flaw in it, or something is not very well described, and then we can get it optimized.
Can it be an idea to prepare like a poll, like what would you like to see in a green hackathon, like kind of questions, like to gather interest?
That we could organize. Need to check out I think we need to open on the service desk a ticket for this to get access to create a poll, but then we can just run it and design it as we want to have. Alrighty.
And what were the two things that you mentioned earlier that that are next steps?
So we should discuss about which could be the first hacks which we want to describe or want to work on. Describe, I think, is a little, maybe develop would be the better word. I think we should not overload ourselves and should say like, oh, we want to make this 5 hacks, but should start simple with like maybe 1 or 2, just to get a feeling of, also get a feeling of how complicated is it, how much effort is it. I've designed and worked on trainings in the past quite a lot, but it sometimes depends on, can be anything from like, oh, it's just a few days of work to, oh, we need months if we do it right because it's so complicated, right? So defining once the topics or voting a little bit on the topics which we would like to see first, and then who would like to work on it, who wants to take over one of the topics. Ideally, it's more than one person. Of course, together working on something makes more fun than alone. And obviously, it takes also gets a little bit faster in the implementation. And from there, we will just start right into, because I think in the end, we also will do our lessons learned on the way. Except someone of you is a full-time instruction writer for how to do hacks and whatsoever. So I would like to I have it.
I am going to drop off, but good to see you guys again. And yeah, see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
I would do it like this way, and this is the very easiest and stupidest way, which we can do. We have here 4 topics. We'll shortly go through it. If you miss something from your side, we can add it, and then we will do a super simple, easy vote on the Zoom chat. The first topic, which you can think of, is to measure your application power consumption with Kepler or Scafandre, because it lays the baseline on like optimizing later on applications. Scale your infrastructure with a green sump. So leverage different tools to downsize the system, similar to what Christian has mentioned. If we cannot downsize the infrastructure on whatever occasion, then all the optimization doesn't help that much, maybe. Build and deploy your application with the environment in mind, maybe something from the GitOps group. So I was thinking here about like, okay, and this could be something, Nikki, where you can also enlighten us, because you had already a look into like the efficiency from different GitOps tools, but maybe you have also discussed about like what are more efficient or less efficient processes which you're running during the automation, right? I always have to think when about like the very large digital native companies which run continuously for every commit a pipeline somewhere. And this is like ridiculously, because this doesn't make sense. Even you just commit a comma and then it's like you need to run the whole pipeline, it's waste of energy. And then the last one would be something like scale your applications with KEDA and power metrics, for example. I'm not sure how far KEDA is with implementing custom metrics yet. But we could also just start with KEDA itself and like extend it when there are custom metrics and extend it when there are power or carbon metrics available. Out of these ideas, are there any other ideas from your side which is like, oh, this could be also a great hack?
On the measurement part, on the first one, because I agree, it's it could be that if you're measuring, you want to get to something like an optimization, Or what we did with the GitOps, the benchmark test was to compare two tools and see which one has a lower energy footprint. So immediately just from measurements, you can have a conclusion on which tool to use. So maybe if it's something focusing on measurements, it could be to measure a CNCF project or two projects rather, and see the difference or something like that. Like, because measuring what, right, and for what purpose is kind of the question we should ask ourselves. And
yeah, so I always try to be here the devil's advocate from the perspective of an end user. The end user would be interested to measure their applications, whether it is a containerized microservice or what we still see quite often, a little bit larger VM-based solutions. Sometimes a VM-based solution which runs in a container, which shouldn't be, but I've seen enough of them. And to give them a feeling like, hey, look, this is very resource hungry. But beside of this end user perspective, comparing solutions obviously would be also a good approach in this one, especially if you have someone who puts sustainability on the first place as a quality criteria, as a key principle. And there's like, okay, I have now, I don't know, let's say 20 security tools. And most of them are good with the features, but which one is the least resource hungry one, right? Could be something.
yeah, so it could be like, maybe we can leave the choice up to the participants if they'd like to maybe measure their own open source tool, or if they would like to approach like that, like maybe I'm an SRE and I could choose these two tools. Which one do I want to choose based on the energy consumption of each one?
Yeah, that sounds good. Anything else missing, or you would like to add to the ideas? If you're talking, Christian, then you need to unmute yourself. No.
No.
Sorry, but I have children, so they speak louder. It's okay now?
Yep.
And what about code? Some guidelines for code?
I was actually discussing this topic right today with one of our end users. There is not that much out there. I think just recently shared this one book, which is upcoming into the direction of like green coding thing. But I would carefully try to avoid currently this area, because I think this is like where a lot of research needs to happen and a lot of try and error. And I think this would be actually topic for another campaign to find really either open source projects or end users or everything in between, which is willing to share their experience on like what worked good, what works well, not so good in terms of optimization of the software itself.
One thought I have, and maybe that's just me, and then you can boo-hoo me because I'm saying that, but I'm thinking about the totally newbies here, totally people without understanding of how to measure power consumption and what is good, what is bad. Have we thought about like having this as part of the existing points that you lined up, or like if I were to measure the power consumption of an application, will I, as part of this point, also get like a walkthrough of how to understand when it's good, when it's bad, how to measure it in a good way that they can go and apply later, or should we have like a separate totally beginner point that could be like more focused on, okay, what does it actually mean, the power consumption, for instance, or creating power metrics? How will I approach this as a beginner in this domain?
I see it this way, and also like I explained earlier, I really would love to see that we give a valuable description to what they see there in front of their nose, right? Because I said earlier, I found it always very painful if I run through an exercise and it works, but I don't understand what happens. It's always very helpful. I was recently attending a demo about ePPF, and they go very deep in like, look, this is what's happening, and here this call is tracing this one. You can find the ID here, and I'm like, that's how it's working. Cool, awesome. So when you give this explanation, it is always helpful. And I would say that even so many of us are having their mind and thoughts with sustainability, we still do not know everything, and we maybe forget also sometimes something. So it's always good to enrich it. As a precondition, I would also refer here maybe on the GSF training for green coding, I think it's called, or so. Even it has nothing to do with coding, because they describe all the foundational topics, like, okay, why we need to measure this, why it's not so easy to measure it, what does mean the scope, what does mean this and that, so that there is a given foundation. This I do not want to repeat. I think that that would be wrong to like copy paste what someone has put into a video already. But to give meaningful explanations of what someone can see, if like execute this command, okay, this number should come out. In that row, you see this and that, and so on. This we should definitively put into, so that we can really make it valuable in itself. All right.
So I have something which is like a bit abstract as an idea, so it's not very concrete. But when I think like as a practical use case at work, like often you have to comply with some kind of performances, right? And like in those cases might be more difficult to also be green, like when you have some level of services that you have to comply with. I'm not sure if this is a reproducible scenario, but like I feel like it can be easier to talk about sustainability when you run like in a sandbox or so. But like it would be, I don't know if it's possible, but like, do you think like we can address like both, like trying to see like if we can have some performances and still like be green, or like if green doesn't kill performance, it's like as an argument, something like in this direction. I don't know if I made myself clear.
So what pops up in my head would be scenarios, for example, where you would choose GPU over CPU cases, or where you have, because they're often quite more energy hungry in this regards, but also more efficient in processing. Or do you mean something else?
Yeah, I don't have a practical use case in mind. Let me think. How can I better explain?
So
yeah, maybe,
I mean, what you will
need to think. Yeah, I need to think a bit better.
Well, you can always edit. That's why it's open, and that's why you can always extend it. Nikki.
So since we don't have much time left, I just wanted to maybe point out, discuss briefly the role of the facilitators, so us, in this kind of hackathon / workshop. What are your thoughts on that? Like, what role do we play? How much is there? Also, would the 4 kind of feature sets happen simultaneously, one after the other? That's another question I had.
I would start with the last one because I think it's easier. I would run the one after the other, because if you have 4 of them at the same time, you would need to have at least 4 instructors. Otherwise, you will be distracted, because here comes the question like, oh, how does ePPF work? While the next one is asking, where do I get my metrics for KIDA? And it's like, whoa. I mean, in the end, it also like depends a little bit on the facilitator or the people who run the hackathon, but I would always recommend to do it one after the other. Our role as a facilitator for the big events like a KubeCon, for example, I guess it's needed that we have then putting together a team, 2-3 people who will do this, maybe like even more, like you have some people in the morning, some people in the afternoon executing the hackathon. But overall, we should be able to give enough instruction that also someone who's not directly involved into it can take it and can run the hackathon after a try run by themselves. Maybe they will miss the possibility to answer all the questions. This can be. But I would see this as a possibility to come back to us and to maybe develop then also an FAQ or enrich what we have set up as a feature set here, and to give more explanations on some of the topics.
Yeah, it would be great to list like the facilitator requirements. Yeah.
Okay. With a look into the time, I would please you to make a very secret vote. You can write 2 numbers. This is number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. You have now 1 minute time to think about before you send it. And in 1 minute, I will say go, and then you just send it in the Zoom chat, and then we can see how and who has voted for what. As I said, super secret vote, but hey. And the time to the minute running now.
Where do we send the vote?
In the Zoom chat.
Okay, all together in a few seconds. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Are you ready? Yeah, still some thoughts going on. What would be the best choice? All right. Then you can send your vote now. Crazy. So if we count it, we have for number 1, 2 votes. Maybe you should write it down somewhere.
I thought it was just 1 vote per person, so I would also be 2 and 4.
Okay, so then we have 3 votes for number 1. We have 3 votes for number 2. Oh, that's so equal, and 3 votes for number 4. And oh, I skipped number 3. 1 vote for number 3. Okay. No.
Shall we now choose between 1, 2, and 4 then?
I think so. At least to give one the first place and maybe another one the second place. All right. So then you have another 30 seconds to think about the one number which you would see the most reasonable, and then having the other ones in the second and third place. Getting super exciting. Crazy. Everyone ready? Thoughts are made. A question?
Yeah, so we're choosing the one we totally want to have,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Okay. Just before I send in. Yeah.
Good. Then you can send it now. Okay, I think that's a clear winner for number 2.
The number 2 could include number 4. So
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Why you should use SCADA? Because SCADA is like a Microsoft Microsoft plugin that is based on a GSK plugin. So why not use directly the GSK plugin instead of SCADA?
I'm not sure if I got your question right.
Why do you put SCADA as an item? Because SCADA is like is a plugin developed by Microsoft. It's an open source project, but it's based on GSFK software. Why we don't go to the source that is GSFK's software?
I'm not sure if we're talking about the same Kida. So Kida as a, say, Kubernetes event-driven autoscaling?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes, we agree.
Okay. Please.
Are you?
What-
Yeah, sorry, Nikki. Yeah.
what's the acronym? Christian G.
Kida is Kubernetes event-driven application, I think, something like that.
Yeah, I mean the one that you mentioned that is
GFK Green Software GSK. I am going to search. Whatever you can continue. I am going to search the information.
All right. So then we have written the votes down. Means that with the first priority, we have the Clean Software Foundation software development kit. No, they are not that much related. The GSF SDK is quite poor in its implementation and just like halfway good if you have wartime API keys and being able to, well, at the moment it's very useful for Azure, but not for any other cloud provider.
Christian, is that the one that you were mentioning, that you were referring to?
Sorry. Yes, that's
okay.
It's okay. Thank you.
I think Kida is a little bit more older than the GSF SDK. Where it was? Based on the votes means that we would start with the number 2 topic, which is scale infrastructure versus Creo Stump. I cannot mark it. This one. And shall we then do number 4 or number 1 as the second option? I think I would actually go maybe with number 1 because, as you said, number 4 is like could be theoretically part of number 2, or could be a good extension for it.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Then this is decided. We will work on this both topics as to develop a hack and a hackathon. Is there any one of you who is already excited for working on the one or the other topic to be assigned to it more or less infinitely till the end of your life and signed with blood? So you need to take this legacy until you cannot see Kubernetes anymore.
I don't know. I mean, I'm happy to help with number one. Kepler and Scafandre, like, because I know Kepler pretty well and the issues, the challenges around it. So I'm happy to help more with that one.
Yeah, I think I could also help with the first one. Like I took an issue from Kepler. I haven't had time to work on it yet, but yeah, I should get my hands dirty more soon, so I can also help in that direction.
Good. Then Christina and Kristen, do you want to take number 2? As the actually a higher voted one. Everyone is hyped for it, but don't want to work on it.
Okay, for topic 2, but we need the output of topic number 1.
It depends on, actually. For many tools, you don't directly need it, except you want to be precise on, for example, power consumption, or mix it in with CO2 footprint.
The output from topic 1. It's not the input, it's the output from the topic 1. So, thank you.
It makes sense to do, so now we're changing the numbers around, but to do the infrastructure scaling after the measurement, I think makes a lot of sense. And so, like Christian said, to have the outputs of the measurement potentially, or the knowledge at least. By output, do you mean like the actual data or the knowledge, like the lessons learned from it?
Yeah, for example, how much energy if I turn down a server, how much energy I consume less, for example.
Yeah, kind of both. Like people might actually build that environment, get the measurements, and then when they move on to the second part, be like, okay, well, now we have the measurements, let's try to do something and check again if the measurements changed. Like it works well together.
Yes, and show people what's the impact, what's the carbon impact of turn down or whatever to perform an action. Because I think the goal of this group is the sustainability. If we only try to measure things and we don't do anything, in order to decrease, we are increasing the carbon emissions.
I need to leave right now, but it was great talking with you, and we'll talk more soon. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Nikki. See ya.
Thank you.
Also have need to drop off soon. For the next steps, what would be relevant, I think, is to discuss about like an outline, what could be the hacks about, how it could be structured, what do you want to do the hack about, what are maybe the requirements for it, do you need something from the CNCF Do we need to get some credits to run somewhere, some infrastructure, or is it something which we can run locally, so that we get a feeling for it, like in which direction, which are the prerequisites which we need here. I would leave this to you to think, so between Nikki and Antonio and Christina and Christian, to get here something set up. I would also propose that we maybe meet in like around 2 weeks again. I mean, everything else we can do also obviously on Slack or in between if needed. I think in 2 weeks. Oh, 2 weeks is not so good. You can also do this without me. We will find the right time. Otherwise, we make a doodle vote and find a good time where we can meet for it. I have to jump. Is there any question from you before I run off?
About your last proposition, so we can ask for example for a Kubernetes cluster with for example 10 bare metal servers in order to install a Kubernetes Kubernetes cluster. Do you think that is possible?
This is what I need to request then, as I guess on the CNCF desk, to find out if it's possible to do so. I don't know.
No, Damaris.
I will take this with me. What's possible to do so?
Damaris, me voy a molestar contigo. Vas a estar.
Thanks for
sorry.
having this, Max.
Thank you for coming here and being willing to contribute to this topic. I think that's great, and it will help a lot of people to get started and maybe lose the again, fear is not the right word, but like don't hold themselves back to try out new things and maybe bring it to the company, because I think the topic is urgent, it's critical. But it's often difficult to get started just from reading through some intros.
Yeah.
I
think we can sync up anyway after that, all of us, if we get questions during the planning. So
absolutely.
be fine.
Antonio, thank you for taking notes. That was great. Have a great evening, morning, midday, afternoon, night, or whatever else daytime you have. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Likewise. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.